Evo Morales, a pivotal figure in Latin American politics, is best known as Bolivia's first indigenous president, a role he held from 2006 to 2019. His presidency marked a significant shift in Bolivia's political and social landscape, as he implemented socialist and indigenous-centered policies that aimed to address the country's deep-rooted inequalities. Morales' tenure saw major reforms in resource management, poverty reduction, and the empowerment of Bolivia's indigenous population. Below is a more detailed and expanded history of Evo Morales, his rise to power, his presidency, and his enduring legacy. Early life and background. Juan Evo Morales. Aima was born on October 26, 1959, in the small village of Isalavi in the Orinoco Canton, Oruro Department, Bolivia. He is of Aymara indigenous descent, and his early life was marked by poverty and hardship, common among many indigenous Bolivians. As a child, Morales worked alongside his family as a llama herder and subsistence farmer. His family later migrated to the tropical region of Chapare, where Morales began working as a coca farmer. Coca farming and union leadership. Morales' experiences as a coca farmer played a crucial role in shaping his political career. In Bolivia, coca is a culturally significant crop, traditionally used for medicinal and ritual purposes by indigenous people. However, it also became controversial due to its association with cocaine production, leading to US-backed eradication efforts in the region. As coca eradication policies were imposed, Morales rose to prominence as a leader of the Coca Growers Union. He fiercely defended the rights of coca farmers, arguing that the crop was part of Bolivia's cultural heritage and that eradication efforts were detrimental to the livelihood of thousands of farmers. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, Morales' involvement in union activism grew, and he became a prominent voice against neoliberal policies and foreign interference in Bolivia's internal affairs, particularly from the United States. His leadership within the coca growers unions catapulted him into national politics. Founding the Movement for Socialism, MAP. In 1997, Evo Morales was elected to Bolivia's Congress, marking his first major step into formal politics. In 1999, he co-founded the political party Movimiento al Socialismo, MAS, or the Movement for Socialism. MAS positioned itself as an anti-imperialist and anti-neoliberal party, advocating for the rights of Bolivia's indigenous populations and rural poor. Under Morales' leadership, MAS quickly gained popularity, capitalizing on widespread discontent with Bolivia's traditional political elite and the country's stark economic inequalities. Election to the presidency in 2005. By 2005, Morales' political influence had grown significantly. Bolivia had experienced years of political instability, with several presidents facing mass protests and resignations. Against this backdrop, Morales ran for president in the December 2005 election on a platform of nationalizing Bolivia's natural resources, implementing land reform, and promoting indigenous rights. In a historic victory, Morales won with over 53% of the vote, becoming Bolivia's first indigenous president. His election was a groundbreaking moment for a country where the majority of the population identifies as indigenous, yet the political and economic systems had long been dominated by a non-indigenous elite. Presidency and major reforms. Upon taking office in January 2006, Morales immediately set about implementing his ambitious reform agenda, which reflected his socialist ideals and commitment to uplifting Bolivia's marginalized indigenous populations. 1. Nationalization of natural resources. One of Morales' first major acts as president was the nationalization of Bolivia's vast natural gas and oil resources. On May 1, 2006, he announced that all foreign companies operating in Bolivia's energy sector would be required to renegotiate their contracts with the government, giving the state control over the majority of revenues. This move was part of Morales' broader strategy to use Bolivia's natural resources to fund social programs and redistribute wealth to the country's poor. The nationalization policy was popular among many Bolivians who had long felt that the country's resources were being exploited by foreign corporations with little benefit to the local population. Under Morales' leadership, Bolivia experienced significant economic growth, and the revenue from the nationalized resources was used to fund programs in healthcare, education, and infrastructure. Number 2. Constitutional reform and indigenous rights. A key part of Morales' political platform was his commitment to improving the rights and representation of Bolivia's indigenous peoples. In 2009, he oversaw the drafting and approval of a new Bolivian constitution. This constitution officially redefined Bolivia as a plurinational state, recognizing the country's diverse ethnic groups and granting greater political autonomy to indigenous communities. The new constitution also expanded social rights, including access to healthcare, education, and housing, while enshrining indigenous practices and languages in the legal framework of the country. Morales' emphasis on indigenous identity marked a significant cultural shift in Bolivia, promoting pride in the country's indigenous heritage, poverty reduction, and social programs. Morales' administration prioritized poverty reduction and social welfare programs, with a particular focus on Bolivia's rural and indigenous populations. His government introduced a range of social programs aimed at improving access to education and healthcare, reducing malnutrition, and providing financial assistance to low-income families. One notable initiative was the Juancito Pinto program, which provided cash transfers to families to encourage children to attend school. These programs, along with Morales' economic policies, contributed to a significant reduction in poverty during his time in office. Challenges and controversies. Despite Morales' successes in reducing poverty and elevating indigenous rights, his presidency was not without controversy. As he continued in office, his critics accused him of consolidating power and undermining democratic institutions. 1. Fourth-term controversy and 2019 elections. Morales was re-elected in 2009 and 2014, but his attempt to run for a fourth consecutive term in 2019 sparked significant controversy. In 2016, a national referendum was held to decide whether Morales could run for another term. The majority of voters rejected the proposal, but Morales challenged the result in Bolivia's constitutional court, which ruled in his favor, allowing him to run in the 2019 election. The results of the 2019 election were highly contested, with allegations of electoral fraud. Mass protests erupted across Bolivia, and the Organization of American States, OAS, raised concerns about irregularities in the election. Facing mounting pressure from the public and the military, Morales resigned in November 2019 and fled to Mexico, later seeking asylum in Argentina. Exile and return. After his resignation, Morales spent a year in exile, during which time Bolivia was governed by a transitional administration led by Jeanine Áñez. In October 2020, Morales' political party, MAS, won the presidential election, with Luis Arce, Morales' former finance minister, elected as the new president. Following Arce's victory, Morales returned to Bolivia, where he remains an influential figure in the country's political landscape. Legacy. Evo Morales' legacy is complex and multifaceted. On one hand, he is celebrated for his efforts to reduce poverty, empower Bolivia's indigenous populations, and challenge neoliberal economic policies. Under his leadership, Bolivia experienced significant economic growth, and his social programs helped improve the lives of millions of Bolivians. On the other hand, his later years in power were marked by increasing authoritarianism, and his decision to seek a fourth term in office tarnished his reputation among some supporters. Nonetheless, Morales remains a powerful symbol of indigenous pride and resistance to foreign domination in Latin America. His presidency significantly reshaped Bolivia's political, social, and economic structures, leaving an indelible mark